Belial, a name that has echoed through the corridors of mythology, religion, and occult studies, is not just a symbol of evil, but one of the most complex personifications of lawlessness and anarchy. His name conjures images of disorder, rebellion, and the breakdown of societal norms, making him a captivating figure for those who delve into demonology. Yet, despite his fearsome reputation, Belial's story is much more than that of a mere chaotic force. His rise from angelic origins to one of the most reviled demons in religious lore invites us to question the boundaries between order and chaos, good and evil. The opening of the video introduces the viewer to the enigma that is Belial, posing questions that intrigue and provoke curiosity. How did Belial come to represent such destructive forces? What lessons does his story offer in a world that constantly grapples with the tension between freedom and control? As the video sets the stage, it taps into the broader theme of chaos versus order, a concept as old as civilization itself. The notion of lawlessness isn't simply about breaking rules. It's about the deeper human fear of losing control, of societies collapsing into turmoil. Belial, in this sense, becomes a lens through which we explore that fear. His mythology isn't confined to the realms of the supernatural, but is tied to the very real historical anxieties of rebellion and societal disintegration. The audience is drawn in by the promise of an exploration that goes beyond demonization, touching on philosophical and psychological themes that resonate with both ancient and modern audiences. This introduction hooks the viewer, inviting them into a world where myth and reality blur. It sets up Belial as a key figure in understanding the darker aspects of human nature and history, teasing the broader narrative of how a once celestial being fell into infamy. Through this hook, the audience is prepared for a journey through the depths of religious and cultural texts that have shaped the image of Belial as a demon of lawlessness and anarchy. Belial's story begins, like many other infamous demons, in the realm of the divine. He is believed to have been among the ranks of angels before his fall, sharing in the glory of the heavens. As Belial's mythos evolved, his role in religious texts began to crystallize around the concept of lawlessness. He became a key figure in apocryphal writings, often positioned as the adversary of all that is orderly and righteous. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Belial is depicted as the leader of the sons of darkness, locked in an eternal struggle against the sons of light. This cosmic battle is not just a physical confrontation, but a philosophical one. Belial's forces represent chaos, rebellion, and moral corruption, while the forces of light symbolize order, law, and virtue. Through this lens, Belial's lawlessness is not merely criminal, but a profound rejection of the divine order itself. In Christian texts, Belial often surfaces as a warning, a figure used to represent the ultimate consequences of moral decay. In the New Testament, particularly in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 15, Paul asks, what harmony is there between Christ and Belial? This rhetorical question highlights the stark contrast between Christ, the embodiment of divine law and order, and Belial, who embodies chaos and corruption. Here, Belial is not just a demon, but a symbol of everything that stands in opposition to divine law, anarchy in its purest form. His lawlessness is tied to the destruction of moral integrity, a force that pulls individuals away from virtue and into the depths of sin and rebellion. By examining these religious texts, we gain a deeper understanding of why Belial became so feared and reviled. His lawlessness is not random. It is strategic, aimed at undermining the very foundations of society and morality. This section draws attention to the symbolic role Belial plays in religious narratives, offering a glimpse into why his name has become synonymous with anarchy. By positioning him as the force behind societal decay, Belial's influence extends beyond the individual sinner, affecting entire communities and civilizations. This makes him not just a personal tempter, but a cosmic antagonist in the eternal battle between order and chaos. As Christianity spread throughout Europe, demonology became an increasingly sophisticated system for explaining the presence of evil in the world. Belial's role within this system became more defined during the medieval period, when scholars and theologians sought to categorize and understand the different forms of demonic influence. Unlike some demons who were associated with specific vices like greed or lust, Belial's dominion was more abstract yet far-reaching. He was the patron of anarchy itself. His influence was thought to be at the root of political uprisings, social unrest, and any challenge to established authority. In this way, Belial wasn't just a figure of individual corruption, but a demon that threatened the very fabric of society. Medieval demonologists believed that Belial's influence could be seen in historical events where law and order collapsed. Whether it was a peasant revolt, the overthrow of a monarch, or widespread heresy within the church, Belial's presence was often invoked to explain the forces behind these disruptions. He was not just an adversary of moral order, but of political and religious structures as well. The fear of anarchy was very real in the medieval mindset, where the stability of kingdoms and the authority of the church were seen as divinely ordained. To threaten these institutions was to challenge God's will, and thus, Belial's lawlessness was seen as a direct affront to divine order. This section highlights how Belial became a figure of both fascination and fear during the medieval era. Belial is not a demon who wields his influence through sheer force or fear, but rather through the slow erosion of moral integrity. In many texts, he is portrayed as a master of temptation, an entity who preys upon humanity's weaknesses, greed, lust, and ambition. His power lies in his ability to seduce individuals into acts that may seem small at first, but ultimately lead to larger moral collapses. He doesn't need to cause outright destruction to achieve chaos. Instead, he works from within, fostering the seeds of corruption that can destabilize entire communities and even civilizations. This subtle, insidious approach makes him particularly dangerous, as his victims may not even realize they are under his influence until it's too late. His ability to influence human behavior ties into his role as the embodiment of lawlessness. Belial doesn't just inspire acts of rebellion. He encourages people to discard their internal sense of right and wrong. He makes lawlessness appear attractive, portraying it as a form of personal freedom or liberation. The narrative of Belial often depicts him offering power, success, or pleasure in exchange for moral compromise. But as his influence spreads, what begins as individual transgressions can snowball into widespread societal decay, with institutions and moral structures crumbling under the weight of collective corruption. Belial's impact on humanity is deeply tied to the philosophical idea of lawlessness as a threat not only to order, but also to the very fabric of human relationships and community. His temptations often lead individuals away from their commitments to family, society, and faith, isolating them in their pursuit of selfish desires. In this way, Belial is not just a demon of anarchy in the political sense, but also in the personal, emotional, and spiritual realms. His power lies in the slow but inevitable unraveling of human bonds, leading to a form of chaos that is both internal and external. Throughout history, Belial has been closely associated with movements and organizations that seek to upend the established order. His role as the demon of lawlessness made him an attractive symbol for those who wished to challenge authority, particularly in times when power was concentrated in rigid hierarchies. Occultists and secret societies have sometimes invoked Belial as a representation of rebellion, using his mythos to inspire their own efforts to disrupt societal norms and structures. In medieval and Renaissance occultism, He was often depicted as a figure who granted power to those willing to defy conventional authority, becoming an icon of insurgency and defiance. One of the most intriguing aspects of Belial's influence is his association with hidden, underground movements. These groups, often marginalized or persecuted, would sometimes see Belial as an ally in their quest for autonomy or power. His promise of freedom from the constraints of law and morality could be particularly appealing to those who felt oppressed or disenfranchised by the existing order. In modern times, Belial has continued to evolve as a symbol, particularly within popular culture, where his persona has been reshaped to reflect contemporary concerns about order, authority, and chaos. Literature, film, and video games have all borrowed from Belial's mythos to depict characters or entities that challenge established norms, question authority, and revel in destruction. These representations often emphasize his role as a figure of rebellion, anarchy, and temptation, but they also adapt him to suit the specific fears and anxieties of the modern world. In many ways, Belial has become a versatile archetype for narratives exploring the consequences of unchecked freedom and the collapse of societal order. For example, in horror and dark fantasy genres, Belial is often portrayed as a demonic figure who manipulates people into embracing their darker impulses, leading to the breakdown of both personal and social structures. His influence is frequently tied to characters who seek power at the expense of others, or to settings where moral and legal boundaries are rapidly eroding. In some interpretations, Belial represents the ultimate test of free will, offering individuals the chance to throw off the shackles of authority, but at the cost of descending into chaos and self-destruction. Through this lens, he becomes not just a figure of evil, but also a complex metaphor for the balance between freedom and responsibility. Belial's presence in modern media also reflects ongoing cultural debates about authority, rebellion, and anarchy. As societies grapple with issues of governance, social justice, and personal liberty, Belial's character serves as a cautionary symbol. He embodies the seductive appeal of tearing down oppressive systems, but his narrative always reminds us of the dangers of what might come afterward, namely, the void left by the absence of law and structure. This section highlights how Belial has remained relevant in modern storytelling, providing a powerful, flexible symbol for examining the darker sides of human nature and societal change. As the narrative draws to a close, the focus shifts to a reflection on Belial's enduring legacy. Despite his ancient origins, the figure of Belial continues to captivate and terrify, largely because he represents something timeless: the fear of chaos. Belial's role as the demon of lawlessness taps into humanity's deep-seated anxieties about the collapse of order, whether that order is political, social, or moral. His myth endures because the threat he embodies is universal and perpetual,